So you do not participate in a professional learning community, and you think you know why you don't. You probably have a roadblock that is getting in the way. You have questions about PLCs. What are PLCs anyway? Who is in the PLCs? What do they do in a PLC? What can I get out of being in a PLC? And the questions go on and on and on. A professional learning community, or PLC, can be a grade-level group of teachers. This model is often found in elementary schools. A PLC can also be made up of teachers in the same department, such as you would find in secondary schools. The members of PLCs work interdependently to achieve common goals linked to student achievement. These goals revolve around learning for all students. Learning for students is enhanced by continuous learning for teachers, often accomplished in a PLC setting.
Think back to the original schools that were created in the United States. What were those schools? It was that one teacher responsible for the education of those kids. As we grew a bit and we couldn't get all those kids in the one-room schoolhouse anymore, we began building bigger schools, and we made those schools up of one-room schoolhouses, where each classroom, in effect, functioned as that isolated teacher still working in a one-room schoolhouse.
What is a PLC? It's an ongoing process. It's a never-ending journey of continuous improvement. It becomes the way we do things around here. Collectively, we're exploring new concepts, new ideas. We're building shared knowledge on what we know today to be best practice in terms of education. And then we're testing out that learning in action research in our own setting to see whether or not that concept we studied or that practice we've all agreed to implement, does it work? Does it work for us and for our kids?
The course that
There are 6 guiding principles that guide PLC implementation. They are a focus on learning, a culture with a focus on learning for all, collective inquiry into best practice and current reality, action orientation or learning by doing, a commitment to continuous improvement, and results orientation. What does a focus on learning look like? Teachers have a commitment to the learning of each and every student and high expectation for all students. Teachers take responsibility for all students, even those not in their classroom or grade. A focus on learning is evident when teachers know what students should learn, and they monitor that learning, providing interventions for students as needed.
Think about the cartoon we're making. The learning target that we're working on in 9th grade environmental science is about how the Earth is one giant system.
Learning target 1. Think about the goal of our cartoon. Okay?
And our major assessment for it is a cartoon that shows these interactions.
Well, basically, I just have the snowman outside, and then it turns into a puddle, so it evaporates and turns into the cloud.
Kids had gotten today back a draft of their cartoon. It was actually their second draft with their rubric and comments, so that they could then start their final draft of the cartoon.
This is hydrosphere and atmosphere. Yeah. That is hydrosphere and atmosphere.
Yeah.
My next one can be the water actually gets into the plant, and that's hydrosphere and biosphere.
Yes.
And then groundwater
There are ways that I check for understanding in the classroom. One way is to look at student work, and by giving them comments, I'm really seeing where they are. When I'm using cold calling in the classroom, I'm doing it for a variety of reasons. I'm often checking to see if students are understanding what we've just studied. I'm checking to see if they understand the directions that I've just given. And the first person is Javian. What is your goal for today in class?
My goal today is to work on my final draft, get one-on-one time with my mistakes.
But most importantly, usually I'm checking to see if they understand the learning target we're working on and the material that they need in order to do well on that learning target. Trey.
Why each of the spheres are important assets to Earth?
A lot of times if I'm randomly calling on kids, I can see some kids that are doing really well and other kids that are kind of struggling and haven't gotten very far, and then I know to go to those kids and check in with them.
Okay, see my design like 10 times already. So,
But like, what else is in the atmosphere that is holding in that radiation?
the greenhouse gas.
Yeah.
The debrief is really important in the class because it's your last chance before kids leave to remind them what happened in class that day. So I try to remind them what we worked on, and I try to call out some positive things that I saw in class. So I saw a lot of people focus, and I also saw a lot of detail. I hope, Kyle, you don't mind I'm using yours to show for an example. But a lot of detail goes into these pictures, into these writings. So and sometimes some negative if we need that to move forward, but very often the positive things that I saw for them to leave on a good note, and also to remind them what it was we were working on, what their learning target is, what are the goals for the class, and where we're going to be going next. I would like to hear from a few people what their accomplishments were in class today. First person, Anthony.
I'm almost done with my second draft.
And so that means you're going to be giving it to you right at the beginning of class tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Awesome. And Vivian.
I got most of
At our school, it's really important that students can check their own learning and their own understanding because it's going to be so important when they go to college. And we are college bound. We're trying to help them prepare for that. So along the way, we have ways for them to get into the habit of doing that checking for understanding. We have learning target trackers in class that students do. We also have reflections that students will write after they finish their final assessment to really reflect on the work they've done for that learning target. And that actually leads up to students being able to do their student-led family conference, because then they can tell their families and parents where they are in terms of their understanding and how they're doing in their classes.
What does a collaborative culture with a focus on learning for all look like? The key here is for all and collaboration. Teachers focus on the right issues, student learning. They collaborate and make decisions together that impact instruction. These decisions are made through consensus.
In professional learning communities, we try to employ the strategies of being simultaneously loose and tight. There's some behaviors that we're just tight about, that we insist upon. We're tight about the school's vision, the values of the school, the learning mission, and we're loose about how we might go about achieving that mission and how we might operate within the value system of the school. So a good way to think about it is that we're tight on the what issues, but very loose and empowering on the how issues.
And we had definite, very concrete learning goals. And what my staff started to discover is that those learning goals, which I was very tight about, it was very little looseness when it came to learning goals and student achievement. When it came to those things that were important, not only were they monitored, people were held accountable. When it came to team meetings, those are things I was tight about. That was something that the staff was instructed to do, and I had to monitor those things. I was tight about looking at data. I was very tight about creating common assessments and creating a day where staff could look at the results of those students' common assessments. Those are the things that were tied.
What you want kids to learn needs to be the same, the big ideas. How you assess those big ideas need to be the same. How you teach it, there's the art. And a PLC is not saying teachers need to be lockstep, teaching the same way, on the same day, following the same pacing. That's not the case. We don't dictate all at the school how key concepts are taught. All we ask is that the teachers who teach the same course are in agreement on what are the big ideas that are being taught, and how will we know if kids have learned it.
PLC schools are also tight about intervention.
If you went -3 over 1, you're saying you'd go down 3 right on.
One of the key aspects in the professional learning community is how a school is going to systematically respond when students don't learn. For us to let a student go by 6 to 8 weeks without any interventions whatsoever was just way too much. We're still working on your science, right? You're at a D right now, but we're still working on that. A lot can happen if a student's really determined not to turn in work and not to do things that are essential for them to be successful.
So when was the last time you pulled up your Edline reports to see how things were going?
They're doing that for a long period of time. It's really hard to then get them caught up. So our staff is incredible in that they committed to referring students to us electronically every 3 to 4 weeks.
How should a school respond when kids don't learn? By ensuring a student receives increased levels of time and support in a manner that is timely, increasingly directive, not invitational, and systematic.
What does collective inquiry into best practice and current reality look like? PLC members build shared knowledge by clarifying questions about the current reality on their grade level or in their department. What are things really like in our classrooms right now related to learning? What instructional practices do we use, and are they effective? What strategies and techniques do we facilitate to promote successful learning? All of these questions and many more lead a PLC to change the current reality into the vision. What does action orientation look like? True learning means taking action. We learn best by doing. What does a commitment to continuous learning look like? PLC participants are gathering evidence that indicates students' current level of learning. Teachers are collectively developing and implementing strategies and ideas to build on strengths and address weaknesses. Teachers and PLCs analyze the impact of instructional changes to see what worked and what didn't. Then PLC participants apply their new knowledge in the next cycle of continuous improvement. Lastly, what does results orientation look like? Good intentions do not count here. Tangible results trump good intentions. These results are aligned with the measurable improvement goals. Formative assessment is evident and drives instructional decisions. Assessment identifies the struggling students so their weaknesses can be strengthened. Take a minute to read this quote by Pablo Picasso. Then read along with the following video out of Australia. Just substitute United States for Australia and Americans for Australians. Enjoy. You now know what a PLC is and what the 6 principles look like in practice. Your roadblocks should be gone. Now go forth on your own PLC journey and know that success is ahead if you do.